first week of instruction. And since we don't have a textbook until Wednesday, we need to go over some basics regarding how to look at art. There's actually a language that's behind all of the artwork that you see and all the principles of art that we see, which is one of our first main vocabulary terms, principles of design. I'll go over all of this in a second, but just to kind of give you a sense of some of these abbreviations, what they mean, we have SS0, which is our Socratic seminar. And we have a first, this is week 0, so this is before any of the chapters. The question will have to do with what is good art. And so right now, all you'll be doing in that Socratic seminar on Thursday is looking at what does it mean to have good art. What is art that you like? One person in each team will represent your team in a center circle. The whole class will be grouped differently than it is now. It'll have a center stage, and there'll be a panel outside. You'll be asking questions of each other and presenting some artwork. By that point, you'll have a book, but feel free to bring in either your phone or pictures that you print out. But you want to have some works that you consider to be good art, and telling us what you think good art entails. What does it mean to have good art versus bad art? Is there such a thing as bad art? So that's your first step there. If you've written that down, make sure you understand what I'm asking for. You'll have some time when you do your independent work tomorrow. You'll have an activity that you produce to kind of discuss with your team who wants to start off the Socratic seminar. It's a little nerve-wracking starting off. But if you start now, then you won't have to do it again for another 4 weeks. So you'll get to do it and then be done with it. But you rotate every week. Rotate people in your team. Today, the week 0 will have to do with principles of elements of design. You will take Cornell notes today to get us set up with this. Tomorrow is our activity. So principles and elements of design, we'll continue it and start the activity, and on Wednesday you'll finish the activity and have your first critique gallery. This is in which you're going to create all of these abstract drawings and collages, a mosaic of different principles of design connected to different emotions. You're then going to go around the room and do sort of a critique gallery in which you go around and see who you think is using what principles of design to construct different emotions, different unknown emotions. You're going to have to guess and anticipate. Because even abstract objects, that is objects that don't have pictures, they're just lines or values or shapes or colors, they actually represent different emotions. And this is one of the first basis of what our brains do when we do art and why it's different than just normal scribbles on the wall, why it means something to us. On Thursday, your Socratic seminar will actually commence, and you'll have one person each team talking about what is good art to them. What do you like to look at? What's your favorite art? It can be anything you want at this point. If you have nowhere to start, start in the textbook. Look through the textbook and go, wow, what's some stuff that I might be excited to study? On Friday, TU means thematic unit. You have your first thematic unit. This thematic unit will be ambitiously titled A Brief History of Everything, in which I go through the history of the entire universe and then connect it to how humans have wanted to look at the universe as one of its inspirations for art. At this time, you need out a sheet of paper. You'd be ready for the Cornell notes. Do you have a notebook? Why don't you get that out? Have out your Cornell notes with that. Principles of design. That's what this is titled. You can kind of see in this picture here all sorts of names. We're going to be going through some of these basic concepts today, starting with the title, The Principles of Design. Say again. If you wanted to. The Principles of Design. When you get your textbook and you want to read further about the principles of design by the end of the week and supplement your Cornell notes, Gardner's pages 1 through 13 helps you analyze artwork in a more academic way. So That'll be something we'll connect to more next week when we start prehistoric work. But just to let you know that that'll be part of it. But most of everything you need to know right now will come from just this class. This will be one of the only times that we will have a formal lecture in which you don't know anything about the topic and I'm talking to you as novices. From now on, at some point, you're going to be getting chapter jigsaws in which you'll know something about the artwork as soon as you get the packet. You'll be working through a routine at night to research a section, a particular snapshot, and you will be included in the lecture. That is, you should be able to defend and talk about things from what you studied the night before. So I'll be walking through that process when we get our first packets. That's not now. It's not this week. I'll get it to you on Friday. You'll have your first packet, and then they'll be due the following, not the following Monday, but the Monday after. So you'll have lots of time, 2 full weekends with it, and I'll be walking through that whole process starting next Monday. The first thing that I boiled down, this is the first thing you can write, about how to look at art, is just a simple acronym. We start here. How to look at art. Every artwork has a unique signature. It has a unique way of being developed. It has its own unique marks. And that's the acronym that I've used to create a way of thinking about art. Marks with a C, then, is a way to create good art analysis. You all look at art all the time. It's all around you. Everything is designed. And yet, we don't have a proper vocabulary, a language, to analyze the things that bombard us day after day after day. Even on a phone, an app, how many times do you see pop-up advertisements or games or commercials or videos? That's all designed. There's people who've put in effort to create the biggest impact in the smallest amount of time. Advertising plays on your ability to like art. But if we don't have language to describe it, it may influence us in ways we don't want. So that might be one reason for learning about art and how to analyze it. Marx here has the following: message, aesthetic, represent, culture, and symbols. Just like when you read a book, which is a form of art, by the way, there is a way that you write about literature. An author has a style. He uses language in a certain way. He has it as a different thing. It's unique to him or her. You might represent or identify symbols as you get more intelligent and you learn more about how literature represents all sorts of interesting poetic images. Art does the same thing, and we need to learn to read a work of art just like you would read a book. The first thing that we can identify with a work is its overall message. As you learn about the history of a work and an artist and what they're trying to produce based on the artist's own words and about author sort of experts, art historians, you'll start learning about the central message of each of the 250 works that you'll learn this year. What's the overall message? The best summary, besides the one here, as in what is the artist conveying in the work, I think of a movie poster. Usually movie posters have like a catchphrase at the top of the movie poster. They kidnapped his daughter, and he wanted payback, or something like that. The message. It's the message of the work. That would be what the M is. What is the central theme that's being conveyed? Number 2, aesthetic. Now, aesthetic is a fancy Greek word that means visuals. It's actually an entire philosophy branch, like ethics. Aesthetics is how we develop good art, which is actually connected to your Socratic seminar topic. What is good art? Well, aesthetics is the philosophy of how to do that, but we're using the word just like visuals. You're describing the visualizations throughout the work. What colors, what principles and elements of design are being used, and how are they making it unique. Another way to think about it that's not there that you might want to write down. How would I describe the work to a blind person? Again, how would you describe the work to a blind person? Let's say someone can't see the work themselves. They're relying on just your language to be able to visualize in their mind's eye what the work is. What's the textures of the work? What are the colors? If the blind person has a sense of color, they once could see and now they can't. They have a good sense of color. Are the colors, how would you describe the colors? What are the adjectives? Are they warm colors? Are they frenetic colors? There are a lot of them. Is it simple? Is it complex? Is there variety? Is there unity? We'll talk about all these principles and you go down the list. So that's aesthetic. Represent is the second level of analysis to aesthetics. That is, when someone has a color in an artwork, chances are that color means something. It conveys something about their culture, which is the next one, but right now it represents something else. It represents an idea. So why do they have the visualizations that they do? It's the why question. Why? Why did Picasso fragment all of the characters in his work so that it looks like multiple perspectives or simplified geometric shapes? Why? The visualization is simple geometric shapes. The why would have something to do with his philosophy of cubism. That is, to see people fragmented. It's style. The third level of analysis of your aesthetic will be culture. This is another why question, but from a different angle. What in his culture makes him want to do this thing in society? What's happening in society? This might be an important historical event. It might have something to do with the author's own life, or worldview, or philosophy. But it's connected to his surroundings. Why does Michelangelo represent in the Sistine Chapel this beautiful, perfect masculine ideal in Adam, when in previous generations humans were considered sinful and evil and represented by weak, sort of distorted characters? What happened in the Renaissance that allowed him to do that? What is it? What is the culture? So we'll talk about that. The Renaissance is a great time period in which we reinvent this Greek ideal of mathematics and beauty connected to the human form and connected to Christianity, God's image. Symbols. What are three symbols? What are symbols? What are symbols? Yeah.
Generally, it's something that can mean something else.
Perfect. It's an object that represents something beyond itself. It's not literal. Somebody who dies for somebody else in a story might symbolize the protagonist's struggle to learn about his own future, his own sacrifice purpose. Something like Harry Potter, right? Who throughout every single book has characters dying for him or around him to save him or to further his journey. And over the course of the book, the book series, he learns that he needs himself to sacrifice. Say sacrifice, and these symbols between Ron and Hermione and all the people around him dying. That's a symbol. It's a motif. If it's multiple times being used, we can call it a motif. But these symbols you're going to find in artwork too. What's that dog mean in that artwork there? Is that a symbol for anything? Well, yeah. A lot of artwork's going to have lots of different symbols. We'll have a whole thematic unit on universal symbols. Spirals are like the first symbol that everyone uses everywhere. It's amazing. We'll talk about that. So that's the marks of good art analysis. You're going to be using this over and over and over again. So get used to knowing how to talk about it. It's easy once you're done, and it'll make it super easy for you to create body paragraphs writing about art if you follow these guidelines. Before I move on to individual principles, I wanted to share with you a quick symbol itself of art. Starting with this here, I don't know why I didn't go in the rotation. What is this?
A house.
It's a house. I know it's kind of tipped over, I apologize. It's not in the rotation there. A house. Well, how do you build a house? What are some of the things you need? Wood, hands, plans. Okay, ooh, so you're already skipping ahead here. Oh, we're thinking about wood. What else? Foundation. Is that foundation?
Workers to help you.
Workers to help you, so you need people involved with it to make it. Insulation. We got a bunch of stuff, right? The first part of a house is, do we have all the stuff? The wood, the nails, the glue, etc. But you had also said what? Plans. But then we also need to know how. So there's the stuff of building a house, and there's how to build the house. Or the principles of building a house. What are the blueprints? Both of those represent how we build art. Okay? So that's the first thing you need to write down in your Cornell notes, is that principles of design are the how. It's the how we're building art. So you can just write that down. How we make art. It's like the blueprints behind the artwork. How did they make it? That's what a principle of design is. An element of design is what, you think? You can use this analogy if you wanted the house. What are the elements? What are elements in science? Are they principles or are they stuff? They're actual matter. They're pieces of what make up everything. Do the elements tell you how they make up everything? Do the elements themselves tell you how molecules are put together? No, that's a different thing. That's like principles of chemistry. That's the laws of the universe. Laws and principles are different than the stuff themselves. Does that make sense? So the stuff of art is the elements of design. What we call elements of design. It's the stuff of art. What is like some of the stuff of art? This is the hard question, but it's way simple. Think about your first thing that you did when you were 3 years old and you started with that pencil and paper. What was the first stuff that you put on that paper? Yeah.
Crayons.
You had crayons, so you had a thing there, but that's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about the media. Yeah.
Color.
Color. That maybe is more like what crayons are, right? And its basic stuff is color, right? So I started with blue. I put blue on the paper. That's the stuff. Okay, I want blue. Okay, what else? What else besides color did you do? Did you just say blue and all of a sudden the whole paper turned blue? What happened? Yeah.
Shapes.
You had shapes. You maybe had a blue circle. So circle is a stuff. It's an object that you're creating. What else? Before you have a shape, what do you have?
You have to have an idea of what you're going to do.
Remember though, ideas are going to be part of your principles. So that's part of like you developing the blueprint. Yes?
A line.
A line. So before we have a shape, if we don't close that shape, we get a line. Line is a stuff of art. What else? That's it? What about if I'm not on paper? What if I have some Play-Doh now? I'm a 3-year-old and I got some Play-Doh. What do I have there if I'm creating something? Yeah. Dimensions or forms. These are also part of the stuff of art, that we have a form, a 3-dimensional shape. So we'll talk about the stuff of art and the principles themselves. And then tomorrow and Wednesday, you guys are going to be designing just abstract pieces based on collage shapes, creating different representations of these principles of design. You need to make sure that you know how they work. The first thing that we need to know, though, is scale. So go ahead and write this word down, scale. Scale means the overall size of the work. How big is it? Do you think that the scale of an artwork changes its meaning?
Yeah.
How? How does it change its meaning?
It could be more important. They're trying to portray the fact that it's important. That's what they're doing.
Say it louder.
They're trying to, if the object or the scale of it is big, they could be trying to portray the importance of the object.
Good. So you've assigned some meaning behind a principle. So you have an idea, and you're going to use scale to represent that meaning behind it. Scale, overall size. Maybe if something is giant, it's going to actually give you a greater sense of like an emphasis that's going to overwhelm you, all of those kinds of things. So artworks can be large, and that changes its meaning. This work here by Géricault during the Romantic era and the Neoclassical era is a gigantic work. It's actually behind the Mona Lisa, which is a famous work. Many people don't know about this work, which is equally impressive because of the scale of the work and what's being done in it. So much of the impact of this Géricault painting, called The Raft of the Medusa, is relative to its large scale, so the overall size of it. Sort of opposite, conversely, when you see something as small, what does that represent in terms of meaning? If something is small. Maybe it's not important. Yeah?
Something that's not that important but still has meaning.
Not important but has meaning, so that's kind of a bit of a contradiction. If something has meaning to you, think about a small object that's important to you. Okay, does that mean that it's not important? No. It's important, but in a different way. How is it important? How is it different than Géricault's big, large painting that everyone sees in a museum? How is this little flute here, this ocarina from the Mayan civilization, how is that different in its importance? Because of its scale. What does the smallness represent now in its importance? It's personal. Thank you. Put +5. If you've spoken up just now, put +5 on your paper so far. Those of you who have spoken up, I appreciate that. It's personal. So if something's personal, I may be creating a sense of family or community based on a small item. Maybe I don't have a permanent dwelling, so I keep my personal things. Then they have to do what when I am done with an area? What do I have to do with them? I have to carry them around. I have to carry my stuff around. I have to carry my art around with me. So my art has to be small because it's important to me. We're going to see some of the earliest artworks are going to be big or small. Small. Prehistoric artworks are going to be these teeny tiny things. First people needed something, but it was important to them, or else they wouldn't spend this time doing it when they should have been hunting. Conversely, a small artwork has a sense of what we call intimacy. Right? It's an adjective to describe, an adverb to describe what's happening to the scale. We need to be close to the artwork to view it. It has an intimate relationship. We need to describe how the right now these are just the basic principles of design, that is the size, relates to our feelings of it. Intimacy. Take a look at this work. What in the world's going on? Big scale, little scale. What do you think?
Big scale.
The big scale, large scale, right? Large scale work. What do you think's underneath that?
People.
People? Can you imagine? People all like pyramided up, perfect geometric shapes. No, what do you think it is? Yeah. It's a stone. What would we call a stone put together on top of each other until it makes a dwelling place that people can go inside?
Sculptures?
It starts with an A. Yeah. Or B, I guess. A building. Architecture. Okay, you're going to call things from now on architecture. There's architecture underneath this. It's architecture, painting, and sculpture. Those are the three types of media that we'll get into over the course of the year. Architecture. There's some architecture underneath this. This is the Reichstag. It's actually very important to the history in Germany. This is in the middle of Berlin. This artist that I'm about to show you has works with grand scales in order to produce his artwork. His name is Christo, and his wife's name is Jean-Claude, and they wrapped the Reichstag in like a huge tarp. And they did this as a sort of a piece, a happening, as it were, that often happened in the 70s, 60s and 70s, these art happenings that happened in a very modern era. So they were to take the artwork and decontextualize it, change its meaning. So the work is all of a sudden different when you just reduce it to its geometric shapes and think about just the scale of it. Okay, to be in front of something like this as opposed to its normal architecture changes its scale. Take a look at the video of it here. It's a 2-minute quick presentation of Christo's work as a whole, and in particular his Reichstag preparation. Listen to what he says about scale and how it represents the meaning of his art.
Painting is flat surface, while the sculpture the surfaces elaborated by the artist. He can go around, experience that different surface of the sculpture. All that space is entirely designed by the artist. Now, what myself and Jean-Claude do, we borrow that space and create gentle disturbances for 2 days. Of course, many people try to stop us.
So there's what the Reichstag looks like
The
now.
most difficult part is still today the permanence. Everything in the world belongs to somebody. 1 square meters in the world do not belong to somebody.
The whole
Of
world
course,
belongs
the
to
drawing,
somebody.
the territorial study of the Reichstag is about the Reichstag. 14 days in June, July 1995 was the Reichstag draft. We have the biggest amount of visitors, 5 million people in 2 weeks. And that participatory public is unique. Actually, people create that energy and anticipation was impossible to orchestrate or invent. Everything that what is inherent to that space to become part of the work of art. This is why we love to do this project that way, because it's the real expedition and incredible energy of human relation in space. All these projects are absolutely, totally irrational. The world can live without them.
Totally
Maybe it's
irrational.
only me and Jean-Claude like to have them. And this is no justification, no reason to exist or make the people think they should exist. Because that cannot be bought. Nobody can charge tickets. Nobody can own them. Nobody can use them. All that is the power of this project. They are absolutely expression of artistic freedom.
Okay. So, he said that the work inherently is irrational. The large scaleness of it, the basically taking away all of its complex sort of historical meaning. Reichstag was big during the Nazi regime and that sort of thing. And making it essentially a work that people have to, they come to it, and no, it doesn't belong to anyone. It just belongs to everyone at the same time. They become part of the work. This is all the weird, fluid ways that artists talk about the work. Kind of creepy. Did you think that was good? Is it good art? Is that stupid art? You get to have a position on this. You think that was stupid? You're gonna say that was stupid. I didn't get that.
That was stupid.
But
I didn't hear it.
but that's fine. But we're gonna start from there, and we're gonna hopefully build up towards understanding work to where when we get to the 20th century, hopefully it won't feel as stupid as it does right now. That's okay. I totally get that. Don't think that I'm all like, yes, you must understand the way I think about art is so important. Irrationality in the people's space, the scale of it is beautiful. Yeah, all that stuff, I get it. It's weird, right? And Christo, of course, esoterically, when someone asks, well, why do you wrap buildings, these big buildings, and make them so big? He says, I do not, I make them the size they need to be. Okay, I need to make them the size they need to be. This is exactly what it needs to be. It just happened. Okay, all that kind of stuff, this potential, and everyone doesn't own space. It's everyone's space. All this kind of stuff. This is the way artists. In that case, this is him trying to express himself completely unbound from all of the other structures of what makes art, like propaganda and politics and government. He's just doing pure expression. At least that's what he thinks he's doing, and that's how you would express it. That's scale. Scale are large things. Artwork that's very large takes on a different meaning than things that are very small. That's all you need to know from this. Scale changes the meaning of the work of art. What are 3 ways scale impacts meaning? Make sure you have sort of a quick summary here of the ways it changes meaning. Go ahead and do that right now. Take about 30 seconds. How does scale change meaning? I want you to use those words. Scale changes meaning by what, and what. How would it change meaning? Have a big word versus a small word. Summarize your section right now. Sorry, I don't have a clock to go on that. Look back here every so often. What are some ways? Someone throw it out there right now. Get some extra credit. Yeah.
Emphasizes certain parts of it.
Emphasis. Good. It changes its emphasis. What else?
Its impact on the person viewing it.
Impact on the audience. Good.
A sense of intimacy.
Intimacy. It changes its intimacy
Importance.
and its importance.
If it's proportional, just
It changes its context or its meaning in terms of its whether this is personal or public. Good. All those can exist. You just need to choose 3 of them. Moving on. We get scale now. Now you're going to use the term scale. You don't say size. Call it scale. Moving on. Proportion. Here's another term. This is related to size. Is a building big or small? What do you mean it depends?
There's like small buildings and big buildings.
There's small buildings and big buildings. What else?
It depends on what you're comparing it to.
It depends on what we're comparing it to. Is a building big in comparison to a planet?
No.
No, it's very small. So it depends. Big and small are relative. They're relative to comparisons, and we call this comparison proportion. Make sure you know this term, proportion. Now, what do you think of when you think of the word proportion? Yes?
Math.
Math, right? Proportions are a math term. How do you identify proportion in math?
Like a fraction.
Yeah, like a fraction, right? Or like a piece of a pie or something like that. Do you have something else?
I was gonna say like when you ask what different objects is small.
Yeah, so it's smallness in relation to other things. So relative size is your definition there that you need. When I think of proportion, maybe it's just because I teach this, but when I think of proportion, I think of human bodies. I've got a long reach, so I hit my own flower. I think of proportion of the human body. Okay, the human body in proportion to itself. Are you proportional? Are you disproportional? You know, which in some cultures represents whether you're good looking or you're what? You're ugly, right? You get all ugly, because of the proportions. So you got a big, huge honker nose. That might not be very good looking because it's not proportional to the face. And so there's actually mathematics behind what makes it beautiful.
No.
You want to kiss that face?
It's nostrils bigger than his eye.
No?
Throw it with fire.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. This is my brother-in-law's work. He's actually a graphic design teacher. He did this on a computer, by the way.
Wow.
He teaches graphic design at Elsinore High School. Very cool program he has going on there. And it was based on the 7 deadly sins, and there's many of them. I'll show you another one called rapaciousness. That's like eating, gluttony. This one was on. What do you think? What do you think is like the thing that's happening to this character here? What is he? Anyone know the 7 deadly sins? Yeah. Sloth. Yeah, he's actually falling asleep. He's tired, and he's ruined his beautiful calligraphy here in his eliminated manuscript, so it's all falling apart. But looking at this work, there's an exaggeration of proportion, and he's doing this on purpose. His whole point was to make it look like kind of a boiled egg, right? So things are running, and so as this character is in this ugly state, he's exaggerated things about the eyes and the nose and the face to represent this grouping kind of feeling behind the work, using proportion and other things like line quality, etc. Other things that let us know, for instance, the idea of depth. How do we know that there's depth in the work? Proportion also lets us know about depth. Yes?
There's shadowing.
There's shadowing. What else? You can say
I would
shadow?
like there's the doors in the background.
Very good. There's actually these doors in the background that create a sense of depth. I'm sorry you can't see this. Create a sense of depth with diminishing proportions. So as the proportions of the hallway change and it gets smaller relative to the front objects, you get a sense of depth. So proportion actually changes or influences things like depth perception, how we perceive depth. Depth. I know, it's hard to say. Proportion. In fact, there was a really cool video. Let me see if I can pull it up. I wish I had it in the PowerPoint. I just saw it the other day, and I meant to put it in. See if I can find it. YouTube? Okay, so I gotta overwrite you. What's up? Here it is. It's called assumptions. I love this artwork.
That's why it's so.
So someone who uses proportion to play with your eyes.
I see this guy on board.
Proportion. Scale relative to size of objects. Isn't fooling your eye at all.
What? Tables small too.
Yeah.
Wait,
Well,
what?
I think we all understand that when he starts moving around the room that there's something off. The proportions were different than when it was developed. And your brain conceives of a world in which proportions are supposed to be stable, and yet if you know the elements and principles of design, you can manipulate your expectations. Yes? Yes. And that's how paintings like this one actually create depth perception, is to understand things like proportion. Yes?
If you notice how you could tell something was off before you even started?
How?
With one really big teacup, it was resting on a table in the back. You could see the flakes.
So you can kind of guess as to all. So it wasn't perfectly set up, but also I noticed too some of the object's detail was a little different based on the focus, because there's all sorts of different focuses going on. So it's good. It's good to think about those things. All right, so down there next to his butt here, proportions can be used to create emphasis. So if you kind of exaggerate objects on the body, or in this case on the butt, you can kind of get a sense of what's happening in the painting. In this case, you're creating unexpected relationships, an eye that's melting off, a nose that's drooping. You're creating unexpected relationships between objects in the painting. And it gives it either a comedic effect, or it gives it a exaggerated tone. Those kinds of things is what you can derive from manipulating proportion. If we look at how proportion impacts this following painting with Van Gogh, we might see that what is the major emphasis in this painting or work, or what are the emphases in the work? What are the focus of the work based on just proportion? If we're looking at just proportion, what's the important things? Yes. There's a what? There's a city in town, but that's way far away. Is that really the emphasis of the work? No, because we know proportionally that it's smaller than the rest. It's not the focus. Yes. The people, yeah, so there are actually a person right here, and there might be other reasons that we make him, but he's proportionally, is he like the biggest object in this thing?
No.
No, so even that, even though he might be in the center, we know there's contrasting white and yellow, which gives him, based on another principle of design about contrast, we might identify him as an important person. But he might be important in relation to things. Yes?
Like the village.
Yeah, the village in the back, again, is very small. It's kind of far away. It might not be as important as the rest of the objects. It's a very basic element in this work here, yeah. The field itself and the sky above. So for Van Gogh, he's very interested in city life or farming.
Like country.
Like the country, right? Farming. This might be important. Nature might be an important thing based on the proportions. He's far away, and he's painting landscapes. Now, you might not realize that landscapes are actually a philosophy that didn't always exist. People weren't painting landscapes in the Middle Ages as much. They were painting illuminated manuscripts and symbols and heaven and angels and all that stuff. Landscapes comes later, when people actually think that this world and farmers and all that kind of simple beauty is important, not rich kings. Think about who might have been able to even afford painting back in the time of kings. So that's an example here of how proportion represents a particular message. Things that are small have less emphasis. Things that are big have more emphasis. Relative smallness and isolation of a few objects might give us a sense of proportion and its tone or style. We think of it in terms of our own bodies and how we do ideal beauty. Things like the Vitruvian Man. Who produced this object? And you know the artist? Very good. If you've spoken up just now the last few times, put +5 on your paper, ending with you right now. Da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci. Before that, Vitruvius is a Roman philosopher who also develops, in writing, Da Vinci visualizes it, the correct proportions, geometrically speaking, of man, and that's why he's representing. Is Is this supposed to be like a Hindu god with many arms and legs? What is he? What is that representing? It's the articulation of the arms and legs, the movement. Yeah. So this represents by all these. So we know the difference between the two. We know that this isn't supposed to be a monster, weird, naked guy that's like with all his hands and arms. We know that he's representing the proportions of how the body moves across in this case, a geometric shape. He's actually representing by lines how the shape rotates. So there's a square and there's a circle, and these are all important Greek ideas that we'll get into later. The use of proportion and unity, which we'll talk about in a second, including things like balance and emphasis, these are other principles of design, all together create meaning in works of art. Proportions, relative size. Yes?
On the Truman Man picture, you could see all the writing in the notes.
Yes.
If everyone wrote like that, Evan, how could you read that?
Well, not everyone wrote like that, remember. It was only Da Vinci. And Da Vinci, kind of a quick fact about him, he wrote backwards so that only he could see it. So there was even an art form in his words. Plus he wrote in Italian, so we couldn't read it anyways. Unless you speak Italian. Anyone speak Italian? Nope. I'm just a freshman, Lawrence. I don't speak anything. I barely speak English.
Can you go back?
Unity. No. Moving on. It's all right. Proportion means creates meaning in the work. How? Depth, emphasis, balance, etc. When things are really big in a painting, it kind of throws off the balance, or it'll change the emphasis and weight of the painting. Unity and variety. What does it mean to be unified?
Together.
All together. All together. What's variety? Many different things. Can something have both variety and unity?
Yes.
Yeah, it can actually all work together, or it can have variety without unity. That is, everything's all over the place and really pulling in different directions. So unity is, it doesn't feel like it kind of fits all together like puzzle pieces, or does it have, or does the variety make it sort of disunified? Is there a feeling that I create as a result? If something's really disunified and disjointed and it's all over the place, will that change the feeling that you see when you see the work?
Yeah.
Everything's all like falling apart. There's pictures of all sorts. There's this interesting series of pictures of like things that make you frustrated. And one of them that I remember seeing was like a spoon that was like papery spoon, like a spoon that couldn't even hold. It was just like watery. That was a picture they manipulated the objects. That would frustrate me that things aren't unified. They aren't part of my expectations of a work. And so we see unity happen quite often. Unity can exist through, this is in this case full on, what other principle of design do you think is at work in this series of works taken together? Is there a lot of variety in each of these different frames? No, there's not changes. There's, in fact, they're all what?
Similar.
And so what do we call this kind of thing? They're unified through repetition, through rote repetition of the object. We haven't talked about repetition yet, but basically that's what that is, repetition of the same object. Now, who does the Campbell soup can? Anyone know? Very good. Put +6 on your paper. Very good for knowing that. Pop art is all about repetition. Why? Because magazines and all the things that you see are reproduced over and over again, and then they start losing meaning as a result of having it reproduced, like your image, over and over and over again. Who are you? Are you just your selfie? And Warhol is interested in that. So repetition, in this case, there's a lot of unity based on rote repetition. It's the strongest kind of unity. Yes?
Well, you say that they repeat it over and over again, but they're not all the same. This is tomato, then vegetable, and it's usually something goes down.
You're right. So they're not exactly the same. There's enough variety in the work. But would you say as a whole that these all belong together?
Yeah.
That there's sort of a unity. There's a unifying theme behind it. Very
There's
good.
a little bit of variety.
There's a little bit of variety. And in fact, Warhol, throughout the course of all of his, even like he has pictures of Marilyn Monroe. Have you seen those? And they're like, people have them on their handbags or whatever, and they're like super cool because they have like artsy handbags. He has these Marilyn Monroes, and slowly over time he lets the adjustments of the printmaking machine get off and get uncalibrated, and so then all the parts start falling apart. all the pieces that make Marilyn Monroe, which is her like eyeshadow and her lipstick and all that. So it's a good commentary on how reproduced female images become stereotypes and become superficial, all that kind of stuff. So we'll get into all that in the pop art way towards the end of the year. Repetition creates rhythm and pattern, and this creates in turn a sense of unity or harmony throughout the piece. So harmony and unity can be interchangeable terms. In this case, we have other principles of design actually lending itself to unity. Things like repetition in this case, or rhythm. Things that are repeated over and over again. Same design, same principles at work. You'll see it with columns in the Greek temples soon enough. Repetition creates a sense of unity and harmony. Ultimately, harmony tries to pull the whole thing inwards on itself, pulls the artwork together as a unified whole, as a harmonious object itself. Repetition causes unity. Repetition causes unity. You can see it in this work here. This is a piece of the Parthenon outside of in the London Museum. Sense of variety. Each of these statues has a slightly different look, but ultimately is this work unified?
Yes.
Yeah, they're all inside of a single composition. There's enough repetition, like these columns, that bring the work together, unified. Underneath the pediment, you'll learn about all the structures of a temple. Small differences, if you have everything the same and then you just change some differences, in this case like height and gender of the clothing, you emphasize small differences even while maintaining the rest. So unity can give way to some strange disharmony. You emphasize subtle differences. This character's kind of creepy. It's a set of creepy works. I like creepy work. It's like Tim Burton kind of stuff. So sometimes you can emphasize differences by keeping things pretty unified, just having small changes. And if we're thinking the opposite, so then of unity would be like variety. Again, you can even have unity even amidst variety. But variety means that you create a sense of excitement through differences. And if something is varied enough, you might create such an excited work that it starts kind of being frustrating or overwhelming to look at. Get so many different things going together that it sort of overloads the senses. Yes?
The other.
Yeah. Fix my mistakes. Huh? It's like I'm not an English teacher or something. On the other hand. So the hand that you started with, the other creates a sense of excitement, conflict, chaos, etc., etc., etc. Conflict, chaos. So variety. So when something has a lot of changes in it, or a lot of different objects, you can say it has a strong sense of variety. Now you're starting to use art language like you should. This work here from the Baroque era shows subtle influences from Greece. But does it look different than the Parthenon piece that I just showed you? And in what ways is it different? Think about your elements and principles of design. How is it different? In that Greek temple, yes.
Colors.
Okay, so it has a stronger, what kind of colors? You use some of the principles of design work here.
Brighter colors.
A brighter variety of colors, right? So using the word variety. Because technically, did the Greek temple have color?
No.
Yes.
Kind of a grayish white, whatever. It did have color, and that's it. But it had a single monochromatic that said one color representing the whole thing, even though at the time it would have been painted more, but now it's not. This way it has a variety of colors. Yes?
It's two-dimensional.
It's what?
It's two-dimensional.
This building is two-dimensional?
I thought you were talking about the painting.
Oh, the painting is two-dimensional, sure, but would you say that there's a lot of variety up on the ceilings?
Yeah, there's more like a design on the other one.
There's different types of designs, right? They have a little bit of sculpture, a little bit of relief, and then they have, like you said, a little bit of two-dimensional painting. Some color, some gold leaf, lots of variety. And variety creates a sense of, well, what? What does it create? Yeah.
I feel like the focus isn't on nature anymore, it's more about what people are doing.
Okay, so this is less about nature and less about the simplicities of, in the case of Greek temples, mathematics. This is more overwhelming based on human achievements, right? Whose type of house would this be, or building? A king house, right? This would be like beautiful kings, rich person. This is representing wealth. Variety representing an overwhelming sense of wealth. In the course of my brother-in-law's work, again, rapacious is a work, again, another one, like eating a bunch of stuff. A lot of variety in this work, lots of different movement with the hands and with the objects. So changes over time create variety, and this is oftentimes creating a different meaning than unity. Yes? It was. It's part of his Deadly Sins project. Casey. Balance. We'll talk about balance tomorrow. You guys were good listeners. I'm sorry that it's just like a lot of la 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 la. It'll be a little bit less than that tomorrow when we finish. You guys will start your compositions. On your weekly agenda, you want to make sure you start looking at what is good art to you, and that's your homework for today. That'll be your first blog.